Hey everyone, this is Marika from Hemisphere, and today what I want to talk about is doming or coning or bulging of the abdominal wall with exercise. But very quickly first, we need to talk a little bit about the anatomy, and I apologize for my artistic creations here. I do not have an artistic streak in my body whatsoever, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of a profile of the abdominal wall. Basically, if I just cut you in half and just had a look at the musculature and the connective tissue, this is what we're going to see. So I've put the muscles in red because they tend to be in red because they've got lots of blood in them. The top blue line is the skin, and obviously there'd be some fat underneath there. The green bits really are the connective tissue. So the ends of the muscles form this aponeurosis, which is like tendons, but that wrap around and join up, and you can see how they split and wrap around the six-pack muscles. So this is the rectus abdominis, and we've got external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis. And this isn't the greatest picture, but hopefully this just gives you an idea of the fact that these connective tissue layers, they cross over, they wrap around, and they connect. So this whole idea of like contracting one muscle or isolating one muscle is kind of rubbish when it comes to the abdominal wall, because if I contract this, it's going to create tension, which is going to change things on the opposite side. So it all kind of works together like a bit of a concert. So when we talk about doming, this is probably my worst picture here. Do you like that symmetry? Doming with the linea alba. So when we talk about diastasis recti, what we're really looking at, so if you look at what it looks like from the outside, it's kind of this peaky bit in the middle. So you'll see this a lot in pregnant ladies in the final trimester. When they've got that separation, they've got a lot of pressure in the abdomen from the baby and the placenta and all the extra fluid and blood and stuff. So there's a lot of pressure from here, and then they'll go to sit out of bed, and you'll see this doming action like that. You'll obviously see it in the postpartum population as well, but you tend to see it more in ladies with a bigger diastasis where they're not controlling that pressure very well. So that's probably what most of us would call, doming. Watch out for this as well in the postpartum population or in the pregnant population when you get people into modified plank positions, because sometimes it's actually more obvious when the weight of the abdominal contents are coming onto that linea alba, and the muscles and connective tissue can't control that pressure very well. So that's what most people would consider doming. Now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about sort of coning or bulging of the abdominal wall. And hopefully, again, sorry about my lack of artistic talent, and I did kind of do these in a bit of a hurry, but you can see how doming is really quite central. And bulging, if you imagine, when you're lying on your back, and if you don't have very good muscular control through the abdomen, and you, for instance, lift up two legs and straighten them out, and you'll get this sort of bulging of the entire abdominal wall like that. And the way that I sort of think about this, and I'm going to freely admit that I don't have research to back this up, and I haven't sat down and with cadavers and pulled on lots of things, but this is kind of the way I think about it. And I think it's probably true, but I'm sure someone will tell me that I'm full of rubbish. But look, this is, if you imagine doing a really higher load abdominal exercise, such as what I talked about when you take both legs out from a supine position, or maybe you're in a full plank position and the abdomen's under quite a lot of load. So those six-pack muscles are they're gonna swell. They're working really hard. If the other muscles aren't really contributing much to the conversation, then what you're going to get is this sort of shape of the abdomen here, where the rectus will sort of pull everything up into this sort of bulge or coning type position. And, certainly you can see this when there's not ideal balance between the four different muscle groups of the abdomen. And ideally what you want is when you've got, especially probably more this deeper layer, the transversus abdominis, when these transversus and internal obliques add that contribution, and probably the external obliques to some degree as well, where they're pulling these muscles down. And what we see on ultrasound as physios is we'll put the probe on the side of the abdomen, and we'll actually see these muscles basically pulling down and wrapping around the abdomen, and they create a lot of tension through the connective tissue. And then what it probably does is sort of balances out what the rectus is trying to do, and you end up with more of this kind of profile. So I do think when your rectus abdominis is working hard, you are going to get changes to the abdominal profile. I don't think we should expect when doing planks or crunches or, dead bugs and things like that. For most people, we're not going to have a flat abdomen because we're actually bringing in our superficial muscles. They have to work to do the exercise. But I think ideally if we can get a little bit more activation of some of the deeper abdominals so that we get a bit more balance through the abdominal wall, we're going to see this kind of profile as opposed to that last one where it kind of comes up into more of a sort of, cone bulge type action. So there's probably some differences in semantics and what some people call doming or bulging, but I think far more what I see in the pregnancy population is that first one. I see a lot more of this, the doming in the final trimester. And then the postnatal population, I tend to see a lot more of this coning and bulging. Now, is this a problem? I do think this is a sign that the people who have this sign on the abdomen have often got some weakness or imbalance through there. I find that they fatigue really easily. I would, if I saw that when someone was exercising, I would regress that exercise and make it a little bit easier and see if they can control that shape so it doesn't come up into quite so much of a dome. That might be through cueing the deeper abdominals and trying to create some more tension through the connective tissue, and just really look at the load and drop it back until they can cope with it better. I do find as well when people come up into that really big bulge type shape is that they'll often not control the movement through their lower back. And for instance, if they're taking their legs towards the ground, the abdomen will bulge up and the lumbar spine will tend to come into quite a lot of lordosis. And this for some people will create back pain, not always, but it's something that I would look out for when we start progressing into the higher load abdominal activities. Okay, I hope that helps. I think there's been quite a few questions lately, just generally in Facebook groups and online, and I think that's just the way I look at that balance through the abdominal wall. Okay, thanks.